Welcome back. Hope you're doing well. Happy reading. Unit 2, Basic Concepts in Sociology. In this, we are going to learn objectives, introduction, key sociological concepts, the concept of society, types of society, social groups, primary groups and secondary groups, status and role, types, multiple statuses, the concept of role, social institution, culture, culture and human behavior, folkways, mores, values, subcultures, social change, agents of change, rate of change, social control, sociological methods. Objectives of this unit: explain the concept of society, describe the nature of social groups, discuss the concepts of status and role, explain the relation between culture and human behavior, describe social change and social control, discuss sociological methods. Introduction. In this unit, we introduce you to basic concepts in sociology. These concepts include that of society itself. The social group is discussed as it is basic to society. We then discuss status and role, which are crucial concepts. This unit also introduces the concepts of social institution and sociological method. Further, we explain various aspects of culture, including folkways and norms. The unit rounds off with explanations of social change and social control. This is an important unit for grasping some of the basic concepts of sociology. Key sociological concepts. Let us first see what is meant by concepts. A concept is a word or a phrase which is abstract from actual experience and which more or less means the same thing to all those familiar with it. A concept represents a class of phenomena. Thus, car is a concept which signifies a vehicle of a particular kind. Once we are familiar with the concept of car, we do not always have it to we do not always have to see it physically in order to know what someone means by it. Similarly, a house or a table lamp are also concepts. Concepts are necessary in every science since accuracy is achieved through them. Every scientific discipline is continuously developing a refined set of concepts, which to those familiar with that discipline will mean the same thing at all times. Sociology too has a large number of concepts, which are similarly understood by all sociologists. Here, we shall introduce you to some important sociological concepts. Many of these concepts, it will be noticed, are expressed in words or terms which are of daily use. It is necessary to be careful with their sociological usage because in sociology, these very terms are used in some special sense. The concept of society. Society is viewed by sociologists as a chain of social relationships. A relationship is social when it is determined by mutual awareness, that is, the behavior of one individual influences the behavior of another. For example, when a teacher enters the classroom, students stop making noise and stand up as a mark of respect for their teacher. This behavior signifies the social relationship between the teacher and the taught. Thus, social relationships exist only when individuals behave towards one another in ways determined by the recognition of each other. This is why society is called a relational concept. In other words, society is not a substantial concept. It does not denote a concrete reality. Rather, it refers to social relationships which become institutionalized when people relate to each other in well established and familiar ways. Social relationships which become institutionalized when people relate to each other in well established and familiar ways. Types of society. The predominant types of social relationships form the basis of classifying human society in various types. Most sociologists contrast the industrial society in which they live with all other types. Some sociologists, like Spencer and Durkheim, classified societies on the basis of their size or scale and other features, such as the extent and degree of division of labor, political organization, and social stratification. Some scholars, like Karl Marx, distinguished them on the basis of their economic institutions. Thus, there are clearly many ways of classifying societies. Without going into complicated arguments at this stage of your introduction to sociology, it is necessary to realize that there is no ideal classification and no pure example of various types of society. In broad terms, taking the wider interest of sociology into consideration, we can divide societies into two types, namely simple and complex. All primitive or tribal social organizations are included among simple societies. The industrial societies with overlapping sets of social relationships are called complex societies. Social groups. The concept of group is central to sociology. While in normal discourse, we regard any collection of two or more individuals to be a group. Sociologically, individuals constituting a group must be conscious of a common belongingness, of sharing some common understanding, common interests and goals, as well as accepting certain rights and obligations. In this sense, a family or a class can be called a group. A society or community can also be called a group. Primary groups. First coined by the sociologist C.H. Cooley, a primary group is relatively small, though not all small groups are primary. Its members generally have face to face contact and thus have intimate and cooperative relationships as well as strong loyalty. The relationships between the members are ends in themselves. There is a basic human need for face to face, intimate, cooperative interaction with others. That is, members derive pleasure and enjoyment merely by associating with one another. They have no other particular ends or goals in view. The primary group comes to an end when one or more members leave it. They cannot be substituted by others. The best example of a primary group is the family, or the friendship, or peer group, as sociologists call it. Secondary groups. Secondary groups, in several respects, are the opposite of primary groups. These are generally large size groups, though not always so. Members of the secondary group maintain relatively limited, formal, and impersonal relationship with one another. Unlike primary groups, secondary groups are specific or specialized interest groups. Generally, a well defined division of labor characterizes these groups. Member can be substituted and replaced, hence, a secondary group may continue irrespective of whether its original members continue to be members or not. A cricket team, a music club, an army, or a factory, and so on are examples of secondary groups. It is possible that within secondary groups, some members may come close to one another and develop primary relations and form group of peers. Several sociological studies have shown the presence of primary groups in armies, factories, and other secondary groups have contributed to high level of morale and more effective functioning. Status and role. The variety of social relations in any society is obviously countless. Parenthood, marriage, friendships, neighborliness, and similar examples illustrate the enormous range of social relations which sociologists examine and on the basis of which they try to understand society. Each social relation is conceived for purposes of analysis and understanding in terms of two components, namely status and role. Status, also referred to as social position by some writers, is the socially defined location or place which an individual occupies in a system of interaction or society. Thus, in any interaction, none of the participants is without status. Indeed, no individual can interact with another if his or her status, as well as that of the person or persons, is not clear in a given situation. Thus, interaction in the family poses no problems because each member knows well the status he or she and others are occupying. This knowledge allows for a smooth flow and predictable interaction. But when we encounter a stranger, we first of all want to know his or her status. Until this is known, we are not clear how we should behave towards him or her. Thus, it is status and knowledge of status that facilitates patterned interaction. Types of status. Sociologists make distinction between ascribed and achieved statuses. Positions which one is born into or one acquires without one's own effort are known as ascribed status. Mostly, kinship statuses come into this category. Achieved statuses are, in contrast, based on and defined by what people do or acquire through their own effort. Usually, people's occupational positions come in this category. Only in some cases it is possible to have both ascribed and achieved aspects in the same status. A hereditary priest in an Indian village, for example, may be rejected if he fails to learn the required scriptures. Multiple statuses. It should also be clear that every individual occupies multiple statuses. Even a young infant is a son, a grandson, a brother, a nephew, and so on. As we grow up, we may get into even more status positions. Public figures and other important men, women simultaneously occupy several statuses. There is, however, one key status in terms of which the individual is ultimately identified and evaluated. In modern societies, one's occupation indicates one's key status. The concept of role. We turn now to the concept of role. Role is the behavioral aspect of status. There can be no statuses without a corresponding role attached to it. Role is thus the dynamic aspect of status and consists of rights and duties attached to it. Thus, an individual occupying the status of a father simultaneously has some rights over his children as well as some responsibilities towards them. Statuses and roles are thus two sides of the same coin. Role refers both to the actual behavior of an individual occupying a particular status as well as to a set of expectations regarding behavior shared by those involved in particular social relations. Thus, in the teacher student relations, the teacher has an expectation as to how the student interacting with him will or should behave. The students too, in turn, have their own set of expectations. Should either of them fail to act according to others' expectations, their relations are adversely affected. Since individuals by and large fulfill role expectation, society gains uniformity of behavior. This discussion indicates the significance of the concept of role. Indeed, it is one of the basic units of analysis of social order in human societies, and later in Block 7, more will be discussed about this concept. Thank you.